The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden hue over the neighborhood that once felt like home to Thomas Webb. He stood on the porch of the modest two-story house, gripping the railing with knotted hands, as if it could anchor him to a past that was now slipping through his fingers like sand. The sound of footsteps echoed behind him, a familiar shuffle that sent a chill down his spine. He turned to see his son, Marcus, approaching with a confident stride that belied the turmoil beneath. "Dad, we need to talk," Marcus said, his voice steady but edged with urgency. Thomas could see the glimmer of something in his son's eyes. Was it desperation, ambition, or perhaps a darker shadow lurking just beneath the surface? "About what?" Thomas replied, his tone deceptively calm, belying the tempest that churned within him. He had always been a patient man, but patience had its limits, and today they were about to be tested. "About the house." Marcus's words landed with the weight of a sledgehammer, shattering the stillness of the evening. "You need to sell it. You can't afford to keep it anymore. Not with the bills piling up like they are." Thomas felt a pang in his chest at the bluntness of his son's words. This house had been a refuge, a sanctuary built on memories of laughter and warmth, memories of his late wife, whom he lost too soon to an unforgiving illness. It was all he had left of her, and now, facing the threat of losing it, his heart clenched in a way that felt like betrayal. "I'm not selling this house," he said, his voice low but firm, laced with the quiet strength of a man who had weathered many storms. "Your mother loved it here. I won't let it go." Marcus's expression twisted, a mix of frustration and something darker. "You're being foolish, Dad. The bank is breathing down our necks. If you don't sell it, we're going to lose everything. I can't help you if you refuse to see reason." The word foolish hung in the air between them like an accusation, and Thomas felt a surge of anger mixing with fear. He had sacrificed so much throughout his life, enduring the gnawing loneliness after his wife's passing. And now his own son was urging him to cast aside the last remnant of their shared happiness for what? A quick fix? A momentary relief from financial burdens that seemed insurmountable? "Why don't you just ask them?" Thomas said, his voice barely above a whisper, not wanting to believe what he suspected. "You've been meeting with that realtor, haven't you? You're not just looking out for me. You want a cut of this house, don't you?" Marcus stepped back, a defensive posture creeping into his stance. "I'm trying to help you. You're too caught up in this." "No," Thomas interrupted, his heart racing now. "You're caught up in something else. You think I don't see it? You've changed, Marcus. I don't recognize you anymore." The tension crackled in the air, and for a moment, Thomas saw the face of his son morph into something unrecognizable. An angry stranger, fueled by desperation. The warmth of the setting sun felt cold against his skin, and he shivered. "You're just a foolish widower," Marcus spat, venom lacing his words. "You're clinging to a past that's gone. I can't keep bailing you out of your mistakes. You need to wake up." In that instant, something inside Thomas shifted. He had always been the quiet one, the one who bore the weight of his grief in silence, who never raised his voice even when the world seemed to conspire against him. But now, an ember of resolve ignited in his chest. He would not be reduced to a fool, nor would he let his son trample over the last vestiges of his dignity. "Marcus," he began slowly, choosing his words carefully. "You think I'm a fool, but I've seen things you can't even begin to understand. You're blinded by your ambition, your need for quick solutions. But trust me, this isn't the way." Marcus crossed his arms, the defiance in his posture a stark contrast to the vulnerability he'd displayed as a child. "What do you mean?" Thomas glanced away, his mind racing back to a secret he had buried deep within himself. A secret his late wife had known, a legacy that had remained hidden since her passing. He had kept that part of his life shrouded in silence, thinking it would protect them, thinking it would spare them from greed and avarice. But now, as he looked at his son, He realized that silence had become a prison. "I have something I never told you," Thomas said, his voice steady now, a quiet storm brewing beneath the surface. "Something that could change everything." Marcus raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched across his features. "What are you talking about?" Thomas took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his decision settle heavily on his shoulders. There's more to your mother's estate than you know. Gold bars hidden away. A trust one set up for you." "What?" Marcus's incredulity was palpable, disbelief mingling with a flicker of greed. "Why haven't you brought this up before? We could have used that money." "Because it's not just about the money," Thomas replied, locking eyes with his son, unyielding. "It's about understanding what truly matters. I won't let you drag us both into a darkness that could consume us." Silence enveloped them, thick and suffocating. Thomas could see the gears turning in Marcus's mind, the conflict between loyalty and ambition playing out in real time. But he also sensed the storm brewing within his son, the desperation that had become a shadow over his once bright spirit. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Thomas felt the chill of night setting in, but he stood firm. Tonight, he would show Marcus that beneath the surface of his perceived weakness lay a reservoir of strength, a legacy that would not be easily extinguished. He had been patient long enough, and now the time had come to reclaim not just his home but the very essence of his dignity. "Let's talk," he said finally, a spark of determination igniting in his chest. "But on my terms." The air in the room felt thick with unspoken words, as if a storm was brewing just beyond the walls of their modest home. Thomas stood by the window, shadows creeping in from the corners, the last rays of sunlight casting a golden hue that danced across the dust motes suspended in the air. He gripped the windowsill with knotted hands, the wood cool against his palms, grounding him in the midst of the chaos swirling in his mind. "Dad, this isn't just about the house," Marcus pressed, his voice edged with a mix of desperation and frustration. He was pacing now, each step a march toward some unseen battlefield, his youthful energy colliding with the heavy weight of their circumstances. "We're talking about survival. I can't believe you'd let pride blind you to what's right in front of us." Thomas turned, his heart pounding as he met Marcus's gaze, which brimmed with a fervor that was both familiar and alien. The boy he once knew, the one who would run to him with scraped knees, eyes wide with tales of adventure, now stood before him, a man driven by a relentless ambition that threatened to tear their fragile bond apart. "It's not pride, Marcus. It's about respect. Respect for your mother's memory and the life we built here. Respect or stubbornness?" Marcus shot back, his words laced with anger. "You think holding on to this relic will bring her back? It's just a house, Dad. A house. And it's costing us everything." The word foolish hung in the air between them, heavy and charged, an accusation veiled in Marcus's urgency. Thomas felt the weight of it settle on his chest, constricting his breath as he struggled for composure. He had never intended to be seen as a foolish widower, clinging to the past like a shipwrecked sailor to debris. But the home, every creak of the floorboards, every fading photograph on the walls, was a sanctuary of memories, a shrine to love that had been snatched away too soon. With a deep, shuddering breath, Thomas stepped away from the window, his heart racing as he approached Marcus, the distance between them now a chasm filled with history and unresolved pain. "You don't understand. This house is more than just walls and a roof. It's where your mother laughed, where we shared dreams and plans for the future. Selling it would be like selling a piece of her soul." Marcus paused, his youthful fervor momentarily flickering as the mention of his mother's name struck a chord deep within him. "I do understand, Dad. That's exactly why I want to protect you. Protect us. We're standing on the brink of losing not just this house, but everything we have left." "You think she would want that?" The question lingered in the air, a haunting echo of grief mingled with the harsh reality of their predicament. Thomas felt a wave of sorrow wash over him, each crest crashing against the shore of his heart. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, envisioning Sarah's warm smile, the way she would light up any room, her laughter a soothing balm to the wounds of life. "She would want us to be happy," he finally said, his voice a strained whisper. "But happiness doesn't come from abandoning the past." "Then what do you propose we do?" Marcus asked, his voice softer now, a hint of vulnerability peeking through the armor of his ambition. "Just wait until the bank comes knocking? Until we're out on the street?" Silence draped itself over them, thick and suffocating, as Thomas struggled to find the right words. He could feel the walls of their sanctuary closing in, each heartbeat echoing the urgency of their situation. I have something to tell you," he said, his throat dry as he braced himself for the revelation that lay ahead, a secret he had kept buried beneath layers of grief and shame. "There's a trust. Your mother set it up before she passed. Gold bars. A legacy." The room fell into a stunned silence, the weight of Thomas's words sinking in like stones tossed into still water, rippling outward and shattering the fragile tranquility that had once enveloped them. Marcus's eyes widened, shock etched across his features, as if he were trying to comprehend the impossibility of what he had just heard. "Gold bars? You're serious?" "Yes," Thomas replied, his pulse quickening, a mixture of fear and hope coursing through him. "There's a safe in the basement. It's where she kept her most precious things. I never thought we would need it, but now it could save us," Marcus finished for him, his voice tinged with disbelief and burgeoning excitement. "Why didn't you tell me this before? We could have avoided all of this." "Because I didn't want it to come to this," Thomas said, his voice growing firmer. "I didn't want you to think of your mother's memory as just a means to an end. I wanted you to remember her for who she was, not what she could give us. This isn't just about money. It's about honoring her legacy." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly as he processed the revelation. "So what do we do now?" he asked, the urgency in his tone tempered by a new understanding, as if a bridge was slowly being built across the chasm that had separated them. Thomas felt a flicker of hope ignite within him, a small flame in the gathering dusk. "We go to the basement. We unlock the safe. But we do it together, as a family," he said, an edge of resolve creeping into his voice. "And we do it with the respect that your mother deserves." Marcus nodded, and for a brief moment, their eyes met in a silent understanding, a thread of connection woven through shared grief and the promise of something more. Together, they moved toward the basement door, the old wood creaking beneath their weight, a reminder of the countless years spent together within these walls. As they descended the stairs, the air grew cooler, a stark contrast to the warmth of the living room above. Each step felt like a journey into the unknown, an exploration of the depths of not just the house, but of their own hearts. Thomas could feel the weight of the past pressing against him, but alongside it was a sense of determination, the knowledge that they were about to uncover something that could change everything. The basement was dimly lit, shadows playing tricks on their eyes as they navigated the clutter that had accumulated over the years. Old boxes filled with forgotten memories lined the walls, each one a reminder of the life they had shared, the love that had once filled this space. Thomas's heart ached as he scanned the room, the memories slipping through his fingers like sand, but he steeled himself against the tide of nostalgia. In the far corner stood the safe, its dark metal surface gleaming dully in the low light, a sentinel guarding the secrets of their past. Thomas approached it cautiously, his heart racing in anticipation and fear. "This is it," he breathed, placing a trembling hand on the cold surface. Marcus stepped beside him, his excitement palpable as he leaned in closer. "Do you remember the combination?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's something only your mother would know," Thomas replied, his voice thick with emotion. but I think I can figure it out. She used to say it was a mix of her favorite numbers, our anniversary, her birthday, and a little bit of luck. Let's do it, Marcus urged, the urgency returning to his voice as he watched his father's hands work the dial, turning it slowly, deliberately, as if he were unlocking a door to the past. With each click of the safe, Thomas felt the weight of his memories pressing against him, the bittersweet taste of love and loss flooding his senses. He could almost hear Sarah's laughter echoing in the background, feel her hand on his shoulder, urging him forward. "Come on, Thomas," she would say, her voice bright and encouraging. "You can do this." Finally, with a final turn, the safe gave a heavy sigh, the door swinging open with a creak that seemed to resonate with the very essence of their shared history. Inside, a glimmer of gold beckoned, catching the faint light and illuminating their faces with a warm, golden glow. Thomas's breath caught in his throat as he peered inside, his heart pounding in his chest. There, nestled among the velvet lining, were the gold bars, shiny, weighty, and full of promise. "We found it," he whispered, a mixture of disbelief and relief flooding through him. Marcus's face broke into a grin, his eyes shining with excitement. "We can finally turn things around, Dad. This is incredible." "Hold on," Thomas said, a wave of caution washing over him. "We have to think carefully about how we handle this. We can't let greed overshadow what this truly means." "Of course," Marcus replied, his enthusiasm tempered by the gravity of the moment. "But, Dad, this could be our way out. We could save the house, pay off the bills, and still have something left over." Thomas nodded, feeling the burden of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. "Yes, but we have to do it right. Your mother would want us to use this wisely, to honor her memory in every decision we make." As they stood together, surrounded by the weight of their discovery, Thomas couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope igniting in the midst of his grief. Perhaps, just perhaps, this hidden legacy could be a bridge to healing. Not just financially, but emotionally as well. With the gold bars gleaming before them, the shadows of the past began to fade, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Thomas dared to envision a future where both he and Marcus could reclaim their lives together. The basement door creaked open, the sound like a mournful whisper echoing in the stillness of the house. Thomas held the heavy door ajar, casting a wary glance at Marcus, whose eyes shone with a mixture of eagerness and trepidation. The dim light from the hallway barely penetrated the shadowy depths below, where the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and forgotten memories. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Thomas asked, his voice a low rumble, reverberating with the weight of his uncertainty. He could feel the tension coiling between them, taut as a wire, ready to snap at the slightest provocation. "Of course, Dad," Marcus replied, his voice brimming with urgency. "This could change everything for us. We can't just let fear hold us back." He stepped forward, the promise of discovery pulling him like a magnet, as if the very air around them crackled with potential. Thomas swallowed hard, grappling with the mingled feelings of hope and dread that twisted in his gut. The basement, once a sanctuary for family projects and laughter, had become a crypt of lost dreams. Each step down the creaking wooden stairs felt like an unearthing of not just metal and gold, but of the memories he had buried deep within himself since his wife's passing. As they descended, the darkness enveloped them, and Thomas instinctively reached for the light switch, flicking it on. The fluorescent bulbs buzzed to life, illuminating the room with a harsh, sterile glow. The sight of the cluttered space, old furniture draped in dust, boxes stacked haphazardly, and remnants of a life once vibrant, hit him like a punch to the gut. "Where's the safe?" Marcus asked, scanning the room with an intensity that made Thomas's heart race. "Back in the corner, behind those boxes," Thomas replied, pointing to the far side of the basement where a weary stack of cardboard leaned precariously against the wall. "It's been a while since I've opened it. I hope it's still intact. Marcus wasted no time, rushing over to the boxes, his hands fumbling as he discarded the layers of memories that had accumulated over the years. Each box he pushed aside released a cloud of dust that danced in the air like ghosts of the past. Thomas watched, his heart heavy with a blend of nostalgia and anxiety, as Marcus unearthed the safe. A sturdy, black metal box, its surface scuffed and scratched, but standing resolute against the passage of time. "Here it is," Marcus exclaimed, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. He turned to his father, eyes gleaming with ambition. "This is it, Dad. This is our ticket." Thomas stepped closer, a lump forming in his throat as he gazed at the safe that had remained a silent sentinel of their past. "We need to be careful. This isn't just money. It's a part of your mother." His voice trembled, a current of sorrow threading through his words. "Yeah, I get that," Marcus said, the excitement in his demeanor softening slightly as he met his father's gaze. "But we can't let sentimentality drown us. We have to think practically." The word foolish hung in the air, unspoken yet palpable, as if Marcus were trying to navigate the delicate balance between reverence and pragmatism. Thomas felt a flicker of anger rise within him, igniting a fire that had long been smothered by grief. "Practicality isn't all there is to life, Marcus. Your mother believed in the value of memories. She wouldn't want us to treat her legacy like a mere commodity. Then let's honor her by using it to rebuild our lives," Marcus countered, his voice rising in pitch, the urgency transforming into frustration. "We can't keep clinging to the past like it's some kind of lifeline. It's drowning us." Thomas's heart pounded, the confrontation escalating like a storm gathering on the horizon. He felt the weight of his son's words, slicing through the remnants of his resolve. "You don't understand," he said, a tremor in his voice. "You think this is just about money? It's about her, about us. We can't lose sight of that." Marcus's eyes flickered with defiance, yet beneath that bravado, Thomas recognized a hint of doubt. The tension between them was as thick as the dust motes swirling in the harsh light, and he sensed that their struggle was not just over gold bars, but over the very essence of their relationship, an inheritance far more valuable, yet far more fragile. "Let's just open it," Marcus said finally, his voice lower, almost resigned. "Let's see what's inside." Thomas nodded, steeling himself against the emotions that threatened to overwhelm him. He felt the cold metal of the safe beneath his fingertips as he knelt beside it, the lock glinting like a dark eye, waiting to be breached. He fumbled for the combination, each number a reminder of the life they had once shared, the laughter that had echoed off these walls. As the lock clicked open, a wave of apprehension washed over him. The lid creaked as he lifted it, revealing the contents cloaked in shadows. Thomas's breath caught in his throat as his eyes adjusted to the dim light, and there they were, neatly stacked, gleaming gold bars resting like sleeping giants. "Wow," Marcus breathed, his voice filled with awe as he peered into the safe. "This is incredible." Thomas felt a mixture of pride and sorrow swirl within him. Each bar, a testament to his wife's foresight, glimmered with the promise of a new beginning, yet carried with it the weight of all that had been lost. "We need to approach this carefully," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "We can't rush into decisions. We need to think about what she would have wanted." Marcus nodded, though the excitement in his eyes remained. "I get it, Dad, but we can't just keep it locked away forever. We need to act. We have bills piling up, and the house. We can't afford to let it slip away." The reality of their situation pressed down like an anchor, but Thomas felt an unexpected flicker of resolve ignite within him. "We'll figure this out together, son," he said, his voice firmer now. "But we will do it with respect, and we'll honor your mother's memory in every decision we make." Marcus's expression softened, the fire in his eyes dimming to a steady glow of understanding. "You're right," he said quietly. I just want to make sure we're okay. I don't want to lose you too." The words hung between them, laden with unspoken fears and hopes, bridging the chasm that had formed between them. Thomas reached out, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his son's strength beneath his fingers. "We're in this together. Always." As they stood there, surrounded by the ghosts of the past and the promise of the future, an unbreakable bond began to reweave itself, thread by fragile thread, against the backdrop of their shared grief and love. With a deep breath, Thomas knew they were at the brink of a new chapter, one that would require courage, humility, and above all, the remembrance of the woman who had brought them together. With resolve, he turned his attention back to the safe, determined to chart a course that would honor both their heritage and the hope that lay ahead. Together, they would unlock not just the gold, but the future one step at a time. The air in the basement was thick with dust and the lingering scent of old wood, memories frozen in time. As Thomas descended the staircase, the dim light flickered weakly from a single bulb overhead, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. He could feel the weight of Marcus's presence behind him, an electric tension crackling in the space between them. "Are you sure about this, Dad?" Marcus's voice broke through the silence, laced with a mixture of anxiety and impatience. "What if it's all just a story, a way for you to hold onto her memory?" Thomas paused on the last step, gripping the railing with knotted hands as if to steady himself against the wave of memories crashing over him. His late wife, Clara, had crafted their lives together with love and care, her laughter echoing through these walls like a cherished song. "She wouldn't lie to me about this, Marcus," he replied, his voice steady but tinged with the tremors of grief. "This trust is real. It was her way of ensuring I'd have some security." "Security?" Marcus scoffed. "We're drowning here, Dad. Those gold bars could be our lifeline." He crossed his arms, a gesture that spoke volumes of his frustration. "You know we can't keep living like this." Thomas turned to face his son, the weight of their circumstances heavy in the air between them. "And what will it cost us, Marcus? Selling our mother's memory for a quick fix?" His heart ached with the thought, and he felt the familiar sting of tears pooling in his eyes. The basement felt like a tomb, holding echoes of past laughter and shared dreams, now suffocated by the shadow of their current reality. "I'm not saying we sell it all," Marcus countered, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "But we need to think practically. If we can just get the gold out, we can pay off the bills and—" "And what?" Thomas interrupted, frustration flaring. "You think that's the answer? If we sell the house, if we dig into her legacy without thought, what will we have left?" Marcus opened his mouth to protest, but then closed it, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. Thomas could see the conflict churning in his son's mind, a battle between ambition and the remnants of love for the woman who had raised him. With a deep breath, Thomas turned away, moving toward the far corner of the basement where the old safe loomed, its presence both ominous and promising. He knelt beside it, his fingers brushing against the cool metal, tracing the intricate patterns that Clara had loved. "This safe is a part of her," he murmured, "a symbol of her love and foresight." "Then let's open it," Marcus urged, urgency creeping back into his tone. "Let's see what's inside, and then we can decide what to do." Thomas hesitated, his heart pounding in his chest. He had spent years keeping this part of Clara's legacy close, a treasure hidden away from the world, and now it felt as if he were on the brink of unveiling a secret that could change everything. "You need to understand, Marcus," he said, his voice firm but quiet. "This isn't just about money. It's about honoring your mother. Honoring her means making sure we can live, Dad." Marcus shot back, frustration boiling over once more. "We can't hold on to memories if we're out on the street." A silence stretched between them, thickening like fog. Thomas felt the weight of his son's words, the harsh reality of their situation sinking in. He recalled the countless nights spent worrying about bills, the creeping dread of the impending foreclosure, the spiraling descent of their lives since Clara's passing. "Fine," he said finally, his voice a whisper. "Let's see what's inside." As he turned the dial on the safe, the metallic clicks echoed like distant thunder, each turn a reminder of the life they had once led. He could feel Marcus's gaze on him, a mixture of hope and impatience simmering just beneath the surface. The combination felt familiar, a code shared between them, one that had been passed down through the years. With a final, decisive turn, the safe clicked open, the door creaking like a reluctant participant in their unfolding drama. Thomas held his breath, the air thick with anticipation and dread. Inside, nestled among layers of faded documents and old photographs, lay the gold bars, gleaming like stars in the dim light. They caught the glow of the overhead bulb, casting a golden hue that illuminated the shadows surrounding them. Thomas felt a rush of emotions: joy, fear, and the overwhelming weight of loss. Clara had trusted him to use this legacy wisely, to keep her memory alive even as they faced the darkness ahead. "Wow," Marcus breathed, stepping closer, his eyes widening in disbelief. "You really weren't kidding." Thomas reached for the first bar, running his fingers across its cool surface, feeling the imprint of Clara's spirit in the very metal. This was her way of taking care of me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "She knew I would need this. And now we can finally breathe," Marcus said, his voice rising with hope. "We can pay off the house, make sure we're secure." "But at what cost?" Thomas challenged, his heart heavy. "This isn't just about the money, Marcus. We have to respect what this represents. We can't let greed cloud our judgment." "Greed," Marcus echoed, incredulous. "This isn't about greed. It's about survival." Thomas felt the tension ratchet up again, the familiar conflict bubbling to the surface. "And what about the memories? What about your mother's wishes?" Marcus took a step back, frustration spilling over. "You're holding on to her memory like it's a lifeline, but it's dragging us down. We need to think about the future." "Sometimes, the future means honoring the past," Thomas replied, pain threading through his voice. "If we sell this, we lose her all over again." The silence that followed felt suffocating, heavy with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. Thomas's heart raced as he stared at the gold bars, shimmering under the harsh light, a symbol of both hope and despair. "What are we going to do then?" Marcus finally asked, his tone softening, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Thomas sighed, the weight of their choices pressing heavily on his shoulders. "I don't know, Marcus, but we need to talk about it. We need to think carefully." "Think carefully?" Marcus scoffed, though his voice lacked the earlier bite. "We need to act. We can't afford to waste time." "Then let's act wisely," Thomas urged, his voice steadying. "We'll go through everything together, discuss what we can do with this money, but we'll do it with your mother's memory in mind." Marcus nodded, though the tension in his brow remained. "I just want us to be okay." "And so do I," Thomas said, feeling a flicker of connection return between them. "But being okay means making choices that honor her, not just choices that fix our immediate problems." As they stood there, surrounded by Clara's legacy, Thomas felt a glimmer of hope mingling with his grief. They were at a crossroads, a moment where their paths could either converge or diverge. The gold bars were a tangible reminder of what they had lost, but they could also guide them toward a future that honored Clara's memory. "Let's take this one step at a time," Thomas suggested, feeling the warmth of his son's presence beside him. "We'll figure it out together." Marcus nodded, though his eyes still sparkled with the urgency of their situation. "One step at a time," he echoed, as they began to sift through the contents of the safe, laying bare not just the gold, but the pieces of their shared past, photos, letters, and the echoes of a life that once was. With each item they uncovered, Thomas felt the burden on his heart lighten, the shadows of grief slowly receding as they ventured forward, not just as father and son, but as two souls navigating the uncertain waters of loss, legacy, and the possibility of redemption. And as the last rays of sunlight spilled through the basement window, casting long shadows that intertwined, Thomas understood that while their journey was fraught with challenges, they would face it together, each step echoing with the love and memories of Clara, forever guiding them home. The old house creaked around them as if it too were holding its breath. Thomas Webb stood beside the battered safe that had guarded the remnants of Clara's life for far too long, its metallic surface cool and unyielding beneath his fingers. He could feel the weight of Marcus's expectant gaze, a palpable pressure that twisted in his gut. "Open it, Dad," Marcus urged, his voice a mixture of impatience and excitement that grated against Thomas's nerves. The sun, now low in the sky, cast a warm, golden hue that slipped through the dusty window panes, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air like tiny memories swirling around him. Thomas hesitated, the key to the safe dangling from his hand like a heavy burden. He glanced at Marcus, whose youthful face was flushed with ambition and hope. In that moment, Thomas saw not just his son, but the boy he once knew, full of dreams and untainted by the harsh realities of life. But the shadows of loss and financial strife had dulled that brightness, leaving behind a desperate urgency that gnawed at Thomas's heart. "Clara wanted this to be a surprise for you," he finally said, his voice trembling as he recalled the day Clara had meticulously explained her plans for their son's future, her unwavering belief in Marcus's potential. "She believed in you, Marcus." "Yeah, well, if it's so important, then let's see what's inside." Marcus's tone was sharper than Thomas had expected, laden with an edge of frustration that stung. "You can't keep hiding behind her memory. We need to face our reality." The word foolish hung in the air between them, unspoken yet potent, reminding Thomas of Marcus's earlier accusation. He felt it like a physical blow, the weight of his son's disappointment crashing over him. He had spent so long cocooned in grief, trying to honor Clara's memory while navigating the stormy waters of their lives. But now that grief felt like a shackle, keeping him from moving forward. With a deep breath, Thomas inserted the key into the lock, the metal cold against his palm, and turned. The safe clicked open, a sound that echoed with finality in the quiet room, as if they were both standing on the precipice of a great unknown. He pulled the door open, revealing the dark interior, and for a moment, he was lost in the memories of Clara's quiet laughter and the way she always seemed to know how to make everything right. Inside, nestled among a few old papers and a frayed velvet pouch, lay the gold bars, gleaming rectangles of promise, their surfaces reflecting the light with a soft glow that seemed almost ethereal. Thomas's breath caught in his throat as he reached in, fingers brushing over the cool metal. Each bar was a testament to Clara's foresight, her love, and her unwavering belief in their family's future. "Whoa," Marcus breathed, his eyes widening as he leaned closer, the tension in his posture dissipating into awe. "You really weren't kidding. Clara, she wanted you to have this," Thomas said, his voice barely above a whisper. "For your education, for your life. She wanted you to chase your dreams without burden." Marcus reached for the nearest bar, lifting it carefully as if it were a fragile artifact. His eyes sparkled with a mixture of disbelief and joy, illuminating the shadows that had clouded his face moments before. "This is worth a fortune, Dad. We could sell these and pay off everything. The house, the bills, everything." Thomas's heart sank at the thought. The house, their sanctuary, was filled with memories of Clara, her laughter in the kitchen, the way the sunlight streamed through the living room window in the mornings, casting a warm glow over their lives. Selling it felt like selling a piece of her, a betrayal of everything she had worked for, everything she had left behind. "Marcus?" he started, but the urgency in his son's eyes cut through his hesitance. "Listen, I'm not trying to disrespect Mom's memory. But we can't live in the past. We have to think practically, Marcus argued, his voice rising with the fervor of newfound hope. We can't afford to keep this house if we're going to drown in debt. This could be our way out. Thomas closed his eyes for a moment, wrestling with the storm of emotions that raged within him. The echoes of their earlier argument resurfaced, the pain of being seen as a foolish widower battling against the love for his son. He could feel the weight of Clara's legacy pressing down on him, a duality of grief and responsibility. Your mother wanted you to have a future, he said slowly, the words traversing the chasm of his heart. But she also wanted us to remember where we came from. This house is part of that legacy. Part of it, sure, Marcus shot back, frustration simmering in his voice. But it can't be the only thing. We're living in a dream, Dad. We need to wake up. He threw the gold bar back into the safe, the clang of metal against metal reverberating through the room, echoing the conflict in their hearts. Then what do you suggest? Thomas asked, his patience fraying at the edges. We just sell everything? Forget your mother's dreams for you. No, I'm saying we need to move forward. We can't let this house keep us shackled to the past. Marcus's voice cracked, the tension between them palpable, thickening the air until it felt suffocating. Thomas ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on him. He had always tried to be the anchor in their lives, but now he felt as if he were adrift in an unforgiving sea, battling the waves of grief and responsibility alone. You think it's easy for me? He shot back, his voice rising. You think I want to hold on to this pain? I'm trying to honor her memory, but it feels like I'm losing you in the process. Marcus flinched, his expression softening as the realization of his father's pain washed over him. I didn't mean that, Dad. It's just, I want a life. I want to be able to breathe without feeling like we're drowning. The room fell silent, the air thick with unspoken words and shared grief. Thomas looked into Marcus's eyes and saw the boy he had raised, the dreams they had woven together, and the fracture that had formed in their bond. I want that too, he admitted, his voice trembling. But I don't know how to let go. There was a moment of stillness, the sun dipping lower, casting long shadows across the room. Marcus's shoulders sagged, the fight leaving him as he dropped the gold bar back into the safe. Maybe we can find a way to honor her and still move forward, he suggested quietly, his voice now softer, almost tentative. Thomas nodded slowly, the weight of possibility settling in the air between them. We can talk to a financial advisor, see how we can manage it all. Maybe we don't have to sell the house right away. Marcus looked hopeful, the tension ebbing as they began to bridge the chasm that had formed between them. Yeah, and we can figure out how to use the gold. We can find a way to honor Mom without losing everything. A fragile peace settled over them, the echoes of their conflict lingering but fading into the background, replaced by the promise of collaboration and understanding. As Thomas closed the safe, he felt a flicker of hope rekindle within him, a sense of shared purpose that had been absent for far too long. Let's start fresh, Thomas said, his voice steadying. Together. Together, Marcus echoed, a smile breaking through the remnants of their earlier tension. As the last rays of sunlight slipped beneath the horizon, Thomas felt the weight of the world lighten, if only slightly. In that moment, he realized that perhaps the true legacy Clara had left behind was not just the gold bars or the house, but the unbreakable bond between father and son that could endure the trials ahead. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting elongated shadows that danced across the living room floor, a stark reminder of the dwindling daylight and the weight of unresolved emotions. Thomas stood by the safe, its metallic door gaping open like a silent sentinel revealing secrets long buried. The gold bars, glimmering under the fading light, seemed to pulse with a life of their own, embodying both promise and peril. Can you believe it, Dad? Marcus exclaimed, his voice tinged with a mix of disbelief and excitement. He leaned closer, the metallic sheen catching his eye, and for a moment, the tension that had gripped their conversation loosened just enough to allow hope to seep in. This could change everything. Thomas felt his heart constrict. The sight of the gold bars stirred a tempest within him, a tumult of emotions that surged and receded like the tide against a stubborn shore. "It's not just about the money, Marcus," he said, his voice steady, though the weight of his grief threatened to crack the facade. "These were meant to secure your future, yes, but they were also a testament to your mother's love and foresight. Selling them will save us from losing the house," Marcus interjected, the urgency in his voice sharpening like a blade. "We have bills piling up, and those bars could help us breathe again. We can't keep clinging to memories while the world crumbles around us." Thomas's knotted hands gripped the railing of the safe, the cool metal grounding him as the memories of Clara swept through him like autumn leaves, swirling and chaotic. "You think I don't want to find a way out of this mess?" he replied, the words spilling forth before he could contain them. "Every day, I wake up and wonder how I can keep this house, our home, together. But at what cost? I don't want to betray your mother's memory." "Betray her memory?" Marcus's voice rose, reverberating off the walls like thunder. "You're not betraying her. You're honoring her by being practical. We can't live in the past, Dad. We have to move forward." The room fell into a heavy silence, the air thick with unspoken words and lingering resentment. Thomas turned away from the safe, his heart racing. It felt as if Clara's spirit lingered in the shadows, watching them, waiting for a resolution that seemed just out of reach. "Do you think she would have wanted us to suffer?" he asked quietly, his gaze fixed on the worn wooden floor, where Clara had once danced barefoot, her laughter filling the air like music. "Maybe she wanted us to be smart about our future," Marcus countered, his tone softening, though the fire in his eyes remained. "She set up that trust for a reason. We can use this money to get back on our feet and honor her memory by ensuring our lives don't fall apart." Thomas took a deep breath, the weight of his son's words pressing against his chest like a stone. "It's not just about the money," he repeated, this time with more conviction. "It's about what we do with it. This gold represents a life we had together, dreams we shared. If we sell it, what are we left with? Just the house, and that's not enough." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustration mingling with exhaustion. "Then let's not sell it, at least not yet. But we need to figure something out. We can't keep pretending everything is fine while the walls close in around us." His voice wavered, revealing the cracks in his bravado. Thomas looked at his son, seeing in him a reflection of his own turmoil. Here was Marcus, a young man driven by ambition and fear, just as Thomas had once been. But now, the stakes felt higher, the weight of their shared loss pressing down on both of them. "I know it's hard," he said, his voice softer now, "but we can't let this define us. We need to honor your mother in a way that reflects who she was: generous, kind, and hopeful." "Then let's be hopeful," Marcus urged, his tone shifting, as if he too was searching for a way to bridge the chasm between them. "We can look for jobs, maybe even reach out to the family for help. We don't have to do this alone, Dad." The idea of reaching out to the family sent a shiver down Thomas's spine. He had distanced himself from them since Clara's passing, feeling their pity like a weight on his shoulders. "You know how they feel about me," he murmured, the words slipping from his lips like a confession. "They see me as the foolish widower, clinging to memories instead of moving on." "Maybe it's time to change that narrative," Marcus said, his eyes brightening with a flicker of determination. "You're not foolish. You're strong and you've weathered so much. Let's show them that we can handle this together. We can honor Mom by being the best versions of ourselves." Thomas regarded his son, the lines of worry etched on Marcus's face slowly beginning to soften under the light of newfound hope. They were both standing at a precipice, looking out over the vast unknown, and for the first time in a long while, Thomas felt the stirrings of something he thought he had lost: faith. "All right," he said, the word resonating between them like a promise. "Let's start by finding a way to keep this house and explore the options with the trust. Together." A cautious smile broke across Marcus's face, a sliver of light breaking through the clouds of their despair. "Together," he echoed, extending a hand toward his father. Thomas took it, their grip firm and steady, anchoring them both in this moment of tentative agreement. It felt like a fragile truce, yet it was enough to ignite a flicker of hope in the dimming light of the evening. As they stood there, a shared resolve settling in the air between them, Thomas glanced back at the safe. The gold bars still glimmered, but now they seemed less like a burden and more like a symbol of their potential, a bridge to the future that lay ahead. They would not abandon Clara's memory. Instead, they would carry it forward with them, weaving her lessons into the fabric of their lives. "Let's talk to the family," Thomas said, his voice gaining strength. "We need their support, and it's time they saw us as we truly are. Not just as the grieving widower and his ambitious son, but as a family who still has a chance." Marcus nodded, his eyes bright with determination. "And we'll figure out a way to honor Mom's legacy too. We'll make her proud." The last rays of sunlight slipped beneath the horizon, casting a deep indigo hue over the room as the weight of their decision settled comfortably around them. They were ready to face the unknown together, armed with the strength of their shared history and the warmth of a love that would never fade. As the stars began to twinkle in the vast expanse of night, Thomas felt a renewed sense of purpose. The shadows of grief still lingered, but now they were accompanied by the promise of hope, a fragile yet resilient light guiding them forward. Together, they would navigate the complexities of their grief and the challenges ahead, determined to honor Clara's memory while forging a path to a brighter future. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting a golden hue over the modest two-story house, its once vibrant colors now muted, much like the memories that clung to its walls. Thomas Webb stood in the living room, the air thick with tension, a palpable reminder of the conversation that had just unfolded. His heart felt heavy, each beat resonating with the weight of Clara's absence. The family photographs lining the mantelpiece seemed to watch him, eyes full of stories and laughter now silenced, and he could almost hear Clara's voice whispering encouragement through the silence. "Dad, we can't just sit here and hope for a miracle." Marcus's voice cut through the stillness, sharp and urgent. Thomas turned, meeting his son's gaze, which flickered with a mix of desperation and determination. The flicker of hope that had sparked during their earlier conversation about the gold bars dimmed, replaced by the storm of emotions that had been brewing between them for too long. "I know that, Marcus," Thomas replied, his voice steady, though his mind raced. "But selling this house, our home, would feel like erasing her. We need to honor her memory, not just chase financial stability." "Honor her memory?" Marcus scoffed, frustration spilling over. "What good is that if we lose everything? You're so focused on the past that you're blind to the present. We could secure our future, yet you want to cling to nostalgia like it's a life raft." Thomas felt a flicker of anger rise within him, sharp and unwelcome. He opened his mouth to retort, but instead, he paused, taking a deep breath to steady himself. It wasn't Marcus he was angry with. It was the situation, the suffocating weight of loss and the pressure of uncertainty that pressed down on both of them. "This isn't just about money, son. It's about what this place represents for us. It's the last piece of her that we have. Then let's use that piece to build something new." Marcus shot back, his voice rising, echoing off the walls that had once been so full of warmth. "We can't keep living in the past, Dad. We need to move forward." As Thomas watched his son's face contort with frustration, he saw the man Marcus was becoming. Someone driven, ambitious, desperate to forge his path. But beneath that ambition lay a vulnerability that Thomas recognized all too well. He too had once been driven by a need to prove himself, to make something of his life, but now all he wanted was to preserve the memories that tied him to Clara. "Marcus," he began, his voice softening as he took a step closer. "I understand your urgency. I do. But you must know, every decision we make now has a ripple effect. It could change everything about how we remember her." Marcus's expression shifted, uncertainty creeping into his eyes. "What if we don't have time for ripples? What if we need to take a leap? What if that's what she would want us to do?" The last words hung in the air, a challenge wrapped in a question, and Thomas felt a rush of emotions swell within him. The room was thick with tension, the kind that made the air feel electric. Thomas looked at Marcus, studying the lines of his son's face. Lines that echoed his own, the same brow, the same jaw. They were two sides of the same coin, both grappling with grief but seeing it through different lenses. "You think she would want us to sell this house?" "No," Marcus admitted, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I think she would want us to be happy, to live, to thrive. And right now, this house is a weight around our necks." Thomas felt the sting of tears pricking at the corners of his eyes. "I just don't want to forget her," he murmured, the admission slipping from his lips like a confession. "Every room, every corner of this house holds her laughter, her warmth. I can't let that go." With a sigh, Marcus ran a hand through his hair, the movement filled with frustration and a hint of sorrow. "Dad, we can keep her memory alive without being shackled to a place that's just bricks and mortar now. We need to think practically." He paused, his voice steadying. "What if we find a way to use the gold bars to secure our future without losing the house?" Thomas's heart quickened at the thought, a flicker of hope igniting within him. "Use them how? Maybe we could leverage them somehow, get a loan, invest in something that can generate income. We can keep the house, but we also stabilize our finances. It's not selling out. It's adapting." Marcus's eyes sparkled with a glimmer of hope, and Thomas couldn't help but feel a surge of pride in his son's ingenuity. "Adapting?" Thomas echoed, letting the word roll over his tongue. It felt foreign yet familiar, like the first hint of spring after a long winter. "You really think that could work?" "Why not?" Marcus replied, a hint of enthusiasm creeping into his voice. "We could consult with a financial advisor, explore our options. We can find a way to honor Mom while also looking out for ourselves. It doesn't have to be one or the other." Thomas contemplated this new idea, feeling the weight of grief shift slightly, like a stone rolling away from his heart. "You think we could really make this work?"
Ido.
"I think it starts with us working together. The gold bars are our secret weapon, Dad. Let's use them to build something together, rather than tear each other apart over what we might lose." The words resonated with Thomas, echoing in the chambers of his heart. He had been so consumed by his grief that he had lost sight of the future, of what could still be. A part of him still hesitated, clinging to the fear that honoring Clara meant preserving the past in its entirety. But another part, the part that had learned to breathe through the pain, began to see the spark of possibility, the idea that they could both move forward and hold on to her memory. "Okay," he said finally, a tentative smile breaking across his face. "Let's explore our options. But we do this together, Marcus, with Clara in our hearts." Marcus smiled, the tension in his shoulders easing as he stepped closer, enveloping Thomas in a warm embrace. "We'll do it right, Dad. I promise." As they stood there, the last rays of sunlight spilled through the window, bathing the room in a warm glow, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there was always the possibility of dawn. Together, they would navigate the murky waters of grief and ambition, striving to find a way to honor Clara while also carving out a future that shimmered with hope. That evening, as they sat together at the worn kitchen table, poring over old bank statements and investment options, the tension that had once filled the air began to dissipate, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just a father and son lost in their grief. They were a team, united by love, resolve, and the lingering spirit of the woman who had brought them together. Thomas smiled at Marcus, who was animatedly discussing the potential of investing in local businesses, his passion igniting the room. "You've got a good head for this, son. I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Dad. I just want us to be okay," Marcus replied, a sincerity in his voice that warmed Thomas's heart. In that moment, as laughter mingled with the soft clatter of papers and the promise of a new beginning danced in the air, Thomas realized that perhaps they could both hold onto Clara's memory and embrace the future. And for the first time in a long while, the weight of grief felt just a little lighter, the path forward illuminated by the flickering light of hope. The sun sank lower in the sky, casting a warm golden hue across the modest two-story house that had been both refuge and prison for Thomas Webb. As the shadows lengthened, so did the weight of his decision. He sat at the kitchen table, the smell of coffee lingering in the air like a ghost, something Clara used to brew every morning without fail. Marcus was pacing the room, his movements sharp and erratic, like a thunderstorm brewing on the horizon. "Dad, we need to act fast," Marcus urged, his voice taut with urgency. "The bank isn't going to wait for us to figure this out. If you'd just let me handle the trust."
"No, Marcus."
Thomas's tone was firm yet tinged with a weariness that betrayed the battle raging within him. "This is not just a financial matter. It's about Clara's wishes. You don't understand." "Understand? You think I don't understand? I'm the one who's staring down the barrel of foreclosure while you sit here reminiscing about the past." Marcus snapped, his frustration boiling over. "This house is a burden now, Dad. It's just bricks and mortar without her." The word foolish hung in the air between them like a heavy fog, thickening the atmosphere. Thomas gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white against the worn wood, as memories of Clara collided with the reality of their situation. He could still see her, laughing in the garden, sunlight dancing through her hair. It felt like slipping through his fingers, like sand in an hourglass, as he grappled with the inevitability of change. "Listen," Marcus continued, his voice dropping to a more measured tone. "I want to honor Mom's memory too, but we have to be practical. Selling the gold bars could give us the breathing room we need. We could keep the house and, by selling part of her legacy?" Thomas interjected, rising from the table abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You think that's what she would have wanted? To strip our family of what she worked so hard to provide?" Silence enveloped the room, thick and suffocating, as Marcus took a step back, staring at his father with a mix of disbelief and hurt. The old clock in the corner ticked away the moments, each sound a reminder of the time slipping by. "Dad, I'm not trying to disrespect Mom," Marcus said quietly, his words softer now, almost pleading. "But we're drowning here. I can't stand by and watch us lose everything. We can't live in nostalgia forever." Nostalgia. The word echoed in Thomas's mind, a double-edged sword that cut deeper with every passing moment. Clara had been the heart of their family, the one who had filled their lives with joy and laughter. But nostalgia was a fragile thing, a veneer over the harsh reality of their circumstances. "I know you're scared," Thomas said, his voice steadying as he softened his stance. "I'm scared too, but we can't make these decisions in haste. We need to think this through." "What's there to think about? We either lose the house or we sell the gold," Marcus countered, frustration creeping back into his voice. "We have to choose, Dad. It's not just about you anymore." A wave of anger surged through Thomas, but beneath it lay sorrow. Sorrow for the son who had once been a child filled with dreams, now transformed into a young man burdened by responsibility. "This is my home, Marcus. This is where I feel Clara the most. You want me to give that up?" Marcus's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from him as he ran a hand through his hair. "I don't want you to give it up, but I can't watch you hold on to something that's only hurting you." The emotional chasm between them yawned wider, filled with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. Thomas took a deep breath, inhaling the familiar scents of the kitchen, coffee, a hint of cinnamon from the cookies Clara had loved to bake, and let the memories wash over him. He had to tread carefully, for the path forward was as fraught with peril as the memories were precious. "Let's sit down and discuss this rationally," Thomas suggested, his voice calmer now. "We can go through the trust documents together. I'll show you what Clara wanted. Maybe we can find a solution that honors her memory while also addressing our needs." Marcus hesitated, the tension still palpable in the air. "You're really going to show me? You promise?" "Yes," Thomas replied, his heart heavy yet resolute. "We'll do this together." With a reluctant nod, Marcus sank back into the chair, the fight temporarily leaving his body. "Okay, let's see what we're dealing with." Thomas retrieved the documents from the drawer where Clara had kept them, a stack of papers tied with a faded ribbon that had once been a vibrant red. The ribbon felt fragile in his hands, a symbol of the love and care Clara had poured into their lives. As he laid the papers on the table, he felt the weight of her absence settle around him like a shroud. "Here," he said, sliding the top sheet toward Marcus. "This is the trust agreement." Marcus leaned forward, his brow furrowed as he read. Thomas watched him closely, searching for signs of understanding or acceptance, but all he saw was the tension etched across his son's face. "This is a lot of gold," Marcus murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "But it says here we can only access it if we use it for specific purposes." His eyes widened as he scanned the fine print. "What the hell, Dad? Why didn't you tell me this earlier?" "I didn't want you to worry," Thomas admitted, his voice thick with regret. "Clara set this up as a safety net for us, but I didn't want to use it unless we absolutely had to. Now we absolutely have to," Marcus said, his frustration bubbling back to the surface. "Look, maybe we can sell some of it instead of all of it. That way, we keep the house and have some money to pay off the debts." Thomas's heart sank at the suggestion. The thought of selling even a portion of what Clara had left behind felt like betrayal. "There's a reason she set up the trust the way she did, Marcus. She wanted us to have something secure, something to rely on when times got tough. Like now." Marcus shot back, his eyes blazing. "We're already tough. Either we sell some gold or we lose everything. And then what? We have nothing left of her. Not even this house." Thomas felt the walls closing in, the air thick with tension as he grappled with the reality of their situation. It was a battlefield of emotions, where love and grief collided with practicality and urgency. He wanted to scream, to tell Marcus that this house was not just a structure, but a sanctuary filled with memories that deserved to be preserved. But he knew that clinging to those memories wouldn't pay the bills. "Let's take a step back," Thomas said, his voice steadier now. "Let's think about this. Clara believed in planning for the future, and we need to do that too. But we can't rush into a decision we might regret later." Marcus's expression softened slightly, the anger dissipating into something more vulnerable. "I just don't want to lose you too, Dad. I feel like I'm losing everything." A lump formed in Thomas's throat, the pain of his son's words piercing through the fog of grief that had enveloped him since Clara's passing. "You're not losing me, Marcus. I'm right here. We just need to navigate this together." "Together," Marcus echoed, and for a fleeting moment, they both understood the weight of that word. It was a thread connecting their disparate lives, a fragile lifeline amid the storm. "Let's take the night to think," Thomas proposed, his heart still heavy but lightened by the possibility of collaboration. "We'll revisit this in the morning. For now, let's try to get some rest." Marcus nodded, though uncertainty lingered in his eyes. As he stood, Thomas caught a glimpse of the young man he had raised, a mixture of hope and despair etched across his features. Perhaps they could find a way forward, a path that honored Clara's memory while also embracing the reality of their lives. As the last rays of sunlight slipped beneath the horizon, Thomas felt a glimmer of resolve. The darkness was coming, but with it, a new opportunity to forge a bond with Marcus. One built not just on grief, but on understanding and shared purpose. Tomorrow would bring its challenges, but for now, he would hold on to the flicker of light that seemed to illuminate their way forward, even in the shadows. The late afternoon sun dipped toward the horizon, casting a warm, golden hue across the modest living room, where shadows danced across the walls like fleeting memories. Thomas stood by the window, his fingers gripping the sill as if it were the only thing anchoring him to this moment, to this place filled with Clara's laughter and the echoes of their shared life. Outside, the world continued to bustle, oblivious to the storm brewing within his home. "Dad, you can't just ignore this." Marcus's voice cut through the silence, sharp as glass. He paced the room, his youthful energy a stark contrast to the heaviness that weighed on Thomas's heart. "We're drowning here. The bills are piling up and you want to cling to what? Some old memories?" Thomas turned slowly, the words hanging in the air like a cloud of smoke. "These old memories are all I have left of your mother." His voice was steady, but inside, he felt the tremors of grief and anger mixing like oil and water. "Exactly." Marcus threw his hands up in exasperation. "And what good are they if we lose everything? If we lose the house? You can't live off memories alone." "Dad." The word foolish hung between them, thick and palpable, a chasm opening wider with every heated exchange. Thomas's heart sank as he watched his son's frustration boil over, the desperation in Marcus's eyes a painful reminder of the stakes they faced. He was a father, meant to provide stability and guidance. Yet here he stood, a man tangled in the webs of his own grief, unsure of how to navigate the treacherous waters of their reality. "I'm not being foolish," Thomas replied, each word carefully measured, as if he were weighing gold in his hands. "I'm trying to honor your mother's wishes. She wanted us to keep this house, to keep our memories alive." "Honor her wishes?" Marcus shot back, his voice rising. "What about our future? What about the life we could have? We could sell some of the gold bars, Dad. We could pay off the debts and live without this constant weight on our shoulders." "Why can't you see that?" The mention of the gold bars twisted something deep within Thomas, a knot tightening in his chest. Clara's trust had been a fragile thread binding their family together, a legacy she had crafted with love and foresight. To sell them felt like a betrayal, an act of desperation that would sever the last connection he had to her. "I won't do that," he said firmly, his voice unwavering despite the storm of emotions swirling inside him. "Those bars are meant for you, Marcus. They're a safety net, a way to protect you. Selling them would mean selling a part of your mother." "Protect me?" Marcus's tone shifted, a mixture of disbelief and hurt. "What good is a safety net if we can't even afford groceries? I need you to see the reality we're living in, Dad. It's not just about memories anymore." The room fell silent, the air thick with tension as each man stood on opposite sides of an emotional battlefield. Thomas looked at Marcus, really looked, and he saw the determination etched on his son's face, the youthful ambition that had once filled him with hope now morphing into a desperate plea. He could feel the weight of Clara's absence pressing down on them both, a ghostly reminder of the love that had once enveloped their home. "Marcus," Thomas began, the words spilling out like a long-held breath. "I know it's hard. I know the bills are piling up, and I can feel the walls closing in. But this house, it's more than just a roof over our heads. It's where we built our lives together, where Clara's spirit still lingers. I can't let go of that." "Then what do you propose we do?" Marcus asked, his voice dropping to a tense whisper. "Just sit here and wait for the bank to take it from us? We're running out of time, Dad. We can't keep pretending everything is okay when it's not." Thomas felt the raw truth of his son's words slicing through him, each one a reminder of the reality he had been trying to deny. The walls of their sanctuary, once filled with love, were now insurmountable barriers threatening to crush them both. "I wish there was another way," he said softly, his resolve faltering as he thought of Clara's smile, the warmth of her laughter echoing in his heart. "But I won't betray her memory." "Betrayal?" Marcus's voice cracked, a mixture of anger and hurt spilling over. "You're the one betraying us by refusing to see what needs to be done. I love Mom, too, but we're not honoring her by clinging to something that's dragging us down. We need to adapt to change." The words stung, a reminder of the chasm that had opened between them. Thomas felt the tears prick at the corners of his eyes, the weight of loss and love mingling in a dizzying dance. "You think it's easy for me?" he asked, his voice rising, frustration bubbling to the surface. "You think I want to lose this place? I want to keep it for you, for her. Then let's do it together, Dad." Marcus's voice surged with passion, the urgency palpable in the air. "We can sell some gold, pay off the debts, and still keep the house. We can keep her memory alive while moving forward. It's not an either-or situation." Thomas ran a hand through his hair, the tension coiling tighter within him. "You don't understand," he said, his voice cracking. "You don't know what it feels like to lose someone and then have to decide their legacy with a price tag. It's not just about money, Marcus. It's about love and respect." Marcus stepped closer, his eyes softening. "I do understand, Dad. I lost Mom, too. I'm just trying to find a way to keep living without her. I don't want to lose you, too." The vulnerability in Marcus's voice pierced through Thomas's defenses, and for a moment, the world outside faded away. He saw not just his son, but a young man wrestling with grief, caught in the currents of uncertainty and fear. The thought of losing him, of pushing him away over a matter of gold, felt like a blow to the gut. "Then help me understand," Thomas said, his voice barely above a whisper, the walls between them beginning to crack. "Help me see a way that honors her without losing ourselves in the process." Marcus nodded, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "Let's sit down and talk through our options. We can look at the bills, the gold, everything. I don't want to fight, Dad. I just want us to be okay." As they settled at the kitchen table, the sunlight streaming through the window slowly dimmed, casting long shadows that mirrored the uncertainty lingering in the air. Thomas felt the weight of the world pressing down on him, but for the first time in a long while, he sensed a flicker of hope. The conversation could lead them somewhere, a way to honor Clara's memory while finding a way forward, together. "Okay," Thomas said, his voice steadier now. "Let's figure this out. For her." And as they began to sift through the details of their lives, the burdens and the blessings, Thomas hoped that in the process, they might just find a way to heal the wounds that had threatened to tear them apart.